7 men who perform in front of millions, yet built invisible walls around the people they love most. In an industry where every private moment becomes content, how did BTS manage to keep their families almost completely hidden from the world? Why do some members refuse to even say their parents' names on camera? And what sacrifice did one member make that still brings ARMY to tears when they finally understood the reason? This is how BTS secretly protects their loved ones. Number 7. Jungkook. In 2011, a 13-year-old boy from Busan stood on the Superstar K Season 3 stage and did not make it past auditions. But 7 entertainment companies saw something in him and reached out with offers. He chose Big Hit Entertainment, purportedly after watching RM perform, and moved to Seoul alone as a trainee. That boy was Jungkook, and from the moment fame arrived at his door, he drew a hard, permanent line between his public life and the people waiting for him back home in Busan. Jungkook's older brother, Jung has remained one of the most private family members across the entire BTS circle. While siblings of other K-pop idols occasionally appear on variety shows, do Instagram lives, or interact openly with fans, Jungkook almost never brings up his brother or his parents during broadcasts. In thousands of hours of content, V-Lives, Bangtan Bombs, behind-the-scenes footage, interviews, Run BTS episodes, and full-length documentaries, the amount of concrete family information Jungkook has voluntarily shared can practically be counted on one hand. This is not accidental. In the K-pop industry, families of top-tier idols frequently become targets. Sasang fans, the obsessive stalkers who operate beyond every legal and moral boundary, have been documented tracking down family home addresses, showing up at relatives' workplaces, and calling personal phone numbers. Jungkook understood this reality early in his career. By keeping his family almost entirely out of the spotlight, he built a wall of silence that most of ARMY has come to deeply respect rather than question. What makes this even striking is who Jungkook is in front of the camera. He is one of the most open and expressive members of BTS when it comes to interacting with fans. He shares his meals, his workouts, his late-night singing sessions, his covers, his thoughts at 3 in the morning. He gives the public nearly everything about himself, except his family. That separation is deliberate, consistent, and unmistakable. When his brother, Junghyun, briefly gained public attention through a creative business venture and some social media activity surfaced, Jungkook never addressed it on camera, never promoted it, never used his massive platform to draw any spotlight toward his brother's personal or professional life. He let Junghyun exist entirely on his own terms, free from the crushing weight of being labeled as BTS Jungkook's older brother in every headline. Jungkook once mentioned casually during a fan interaction that he makes sure his parents are comfortable and taken care of, but he said it almost like an afterthought, not a declaration. He does not perform his love for his family. He acts on it, quietly, consistently, and without ever asking for recognition. For the youngest member of the biggest musical act of the 21st century, someone who has literally grown up on camera since he was 15 years old, that level of discipline around family privacy is extraordinary. He handed the world his talent, his energy, his entire youth, but his family was never part of the deal. And if you think Jungkook's quiet protection is impressive, wait until you hear what the next member built to make sure no one could ever get close to the people he loves most. Number 6. J-Hope. Jung Ho-suk is the sun on stage, the member who floods every room with energy so intense it feels almost engineered to make people smile. But behind that brightness lives a man who made calculated, strategic moves to protect his family long before most idols even think about financial planning. J-Hope did not just shield his family from attention, he built them a fortress, literally. In 2019, Korean media widely reported that J-Hope had purchased a luxury apartment in Seoul's high-end real estate market for his family. This was not a flashy celebrity move announced on social media. There was no vlog, no unboxing, no content made around it. The information only surfaced through public property records, the way real estate transactions in South Korea sometimes do. J-Hope never confirmed it on camera, never discussed the price, and never turned his family's new home into a talking point. He simply made sure the people who raised him were living in comfort and safety, and moved on without a word. What makes J-Hope's approach distinct is the contrast between his public persona and his private boundaries. This is a man who dances with every muscle in his body, who screams his ad-libs into microphones in front of stadiums holding tens of thousands of people, who releases deeply personal mixtapes like Hope World and Jack in the Box that reveal layers of his inner life. He is not a private person by nature. He chooses to be private where it matters most. His older sister, Jung Ji-woo, is one of the few BTS-adjacent family members with any real public presence. She has built her own following in the fashion and lifestyle space through social media. But here is the critical detail. J-Hope has almost never directly referenced her platform on his own channels. He does not cross-promote. He does not tag her during live streams. He does not bring her into Bangtan content. He lets Ji-woo exist in her own professional space, with her own identity, completely independent from the gravitational pull of his fame. That restraint is more powerful than it looks. When you have over 40 million Instagram followers and your sister is building a career in a visibility-driven industry, one single mention, one story repost, one tagged photo could change everything overnight. J-Hope never did it. He understood that real protection sometimes means not helping in the way the public expects, because the cost of that visibility, the scrutiny, the comparisons, the invasion would follow immediately. Growing up in Gwangju, J-Hope trained as a street dancer and competed before ever stepping into the idol system. His family supported that unconventional path. His father, who was involved in education, and his mother backed a son who wanted to dance for a living, in a society that often prizes academic achievement above all else. J-Hope has spoken about his mother's quiet sacrifices in interviews, always briefly, always with weight behind his words, and never with enough detail for anyone to trace back to her daily life. He gives just enough for ARMY to understand the gratitude, never enough for anyone to find her. Financial security, emotional boundaries, and a deliberate refusal to merge his family's world with the chaos of global fame, J-Hope did not just protect his loved ones with silence, he protected them with structure. And if a fortress made of money and boundaries sounds impressive, the next member on this list took protection to a completely different emotional level.
Number 5. Jin. Kim Seok-jin is the member who made the entire world believe he is an open book. He gave himself the title Worldwide Handsome and said it so often that it became global vocabulary. He cracks dad jokes in the middle of serious interviews. He eats on camera with the kind of enthusiasm that turned mukbang content into an art form. Jin appears to hide nothing, and that is exactly the trick. Because behind all that noise, behind the flying kisses and the exaggerated confidence, Jin runs one of the tightest privacy operations in the entire group, and almost nobody noticed because they were too busy laughing. Jin's family is practically invisible. His father, who has been reported to be a businessman and CEO, has almost never been photographed publicly in connection with BTS events. His mother remains entirely out of the public eye. His older brother, Kim Seok-jung, has maintained a level of anonymity that is almost unheard of for the sibling of a global superstar. In an era where a single paparazzi photo can go viral in minutes and fan accounts can track locations from background details in a selfie, the Kim family has stayed hidden, and that does not happen by accident. Jin's method is uniquely his own. Where other members use silence or distance to protect their families, Jin uses volume. He floods every conversation with so much personality, so many jokes, so many memorable one-liners that the audience never realizes what he is not talking about. Watch any long-form interview or variety show appearance carefully. When questions steer toward personal family details, Jin almost always redirects with humor. He gives the interviewer something funnier to chase, and the moment passes without anyone extracting real information. It is a masterclass in misdirection that most viewers experience as pure entertainment. Before Big Hit Entertainment, Jin was a student at Konkuk University studying acting and film. He was literally street-cast, scouted by a company staff member who saw him getting off a bus and thought he had the visuals to be an idol. He did not come from the trainee pipeline. He did not grow up dreaming of K-pop. His entry into this world was almost random, which means his family had no preparation for what was about to happen to their lives. When BTS exploded globally, the Kim family was suddenly connected to one of the most scrutinized groups of young men on the planet. Jin responded by making sure that connection stayed invisible. He has shared small, carefully chosen moments, mentioning his mother's cooking influence, referencing his brother in brief passing comments, expressing gratitude to his parents for supporting a career path that started with a stranger approaching him on the street. But the details are always thin, always controlled, always just enough warmth to feel genuine without providing a single thread for anyone to pull. Even within BTS content, where members occasionally show glimpses of family calls or reference home visits during holidays, Jin keeps those moments remarkably vague. He talks about food, he talks about feelings, he almost never talks about people, names, locations, or anything that could be used to find, follow, or expose the humans he goes home to. The oldest member of BTS understood something fundamental. In a world that demands total access, the most powerful form of protection is making everyone believe they already have it. Jin gave the public a character so loud and lovable that nobody thought to look for what he was keeping behind the curtain. But if you think humor is a clever disguise, the next member on this list used something far more personal to draw the line between fame and family.
Number 4. RM. Kim Namjoon has stood at podiums most people will never touch. He has addressed the United Nations General Assembly. He has spoken with presidents and global leaders. He has given press conferences in fluent English to rooms filled with hundreds of journalists from every continent. RM is, by any measure, one of the most publicly articulate young men in the entertainment industry. He shares his thoughts on philosophy, literature, art, identity, and mental health with a depth that has earned him respect far beyond the music world. And yet, when it comes to his family, this man who always has the perfect words says almost nothing. RM has a younger sister. Most casual BTS fans do not even know she exists. In an age where celebrity siblings regularly build their own platforms, appear on talk shows, or get pulled into the spotlight whether they want to or not, RM's sister has remained so far outside public view that even dedicated ARMY forums have almost no verified information about her life. That is not a coincidence. That is a boundary enforced with absolute discipline by a man who understands better than anyone in the group what public exposure really costs. Before BTS, Namjoon was an underground rapper in the Korean hip-hop scene, performing under the name Runch Ronda. He was a teenager with a reported IQ of 148 and test scores that placed him in the top percentile nationally. He had every door open to a conventional, prestigious academic path in South Korea, a country where educational achievement carries enormous social weight. He chose hip-hop instead, and his parents let him. That decision did not come without consequences for the people around him. RM has spoken in interviews about the social pressure his parents faced from other families in their community. In Korean culture, where a child's academic success often reflects directly on the parents, choosing to let a gifted student abandon that track for underground rap was not just unusual, it was the kind of decision that invites judgment from neighbors, relatives, and colleagues. His parents absorbed that judgment quietly so their son could chase what he believed in. RM has never forgotten that, and he has repaid it by making sure the world that now watches his every move cannot reach them. What makes RM's protective instinct particularly striking is the nature of his public persona. This is not a man who avoids deep conversation. He posts about the books he reads. He shares photos from art exhibitions with long, reflective captions. He writes lyrics that dissect his own insecurities, fears, and contradictions with surgical honesty. He has been more emotionally transparent in his music and public communication than most artists ever dare to be. He gives the audience his mind, his doubts, his growth in real time. But his family,
Their names, their faces, their daily lives exists behind a door he has never once opened for the cameras. In every UN speech, every Billboard interview, every solo album reflection, RM proves he knows exactly how to use words to control a narrative. And the most powerful narrative he has ever controlled is the one he refuses to tell. He made the world listen to everything he wanted to say, while making sure it could never hear the one thing he chose to protect. And if you think the leader's silence speaks volumes, wait until you hear how the next member carried an emotional weight that most people did not even know existed.
Number 3. Jimin. Park Jimin left Busan as a teenager with a dream so big it required him to leave everyone he loved behind. He had been a top contemporary dance student at Busan High School of Arts, talented enough to earn recognition from his instructors and peers, but Busan was not where the industry lived. So Jimin transferred to Korea Arts High School in Seoul, stepping into the brutal trainee system at Big Hit Entertainment, away from his parents, away from his younger brother Jihoon, away from every safety net a 15-year-old depends on. What his family did not fully know at the time was how much that journey would cost him emotionally, because Jimin made sure they never found out. Multiple members of BTS have spoken over the years about how difficult the pre-debut and early debut period was. Long training hours, physical exhaustion, uncertainty about whether the group would even survive. Jimin has admitted in interviews and documentaries that he struggled deeply during those years, with self-doubt, with his own body image, with the pressure to be good enough. He has spoken about restricting his eating, about wondering whether he deserved to be in the group, about nights where the weight of everything almost broken. But when he called home, none of that came through. Jimin protected his family by performing happiness. He made sure that the voice on the other end of the phone was always the bright, cheerful Jimin they believed was thriving in Seoul. He did not want his parents to worry. He did not want them to question whether letting his son leave home had been the right decision. He carried the emotional cost alone, so that the people who loved him most could sleep at night believing he was fine. That is not just privacy. That is sacrifice worn as a smile. When BTS began gaining recognition and Jimin's father Park Pil-woo wrote him a deeply emotional letter, later shared during a broadcast, the moment revealed a family bond of extraordinary depth. The letter spoke of pride, of missing his son, of the kind of parental love that does not need a camera to exist, but happened to be captured in one. Of BTS's most emotionally devastating moments. Jimin's reaction was raw and unguarded, one of the rare times the curtain came down completely. But even after that moment became iconic within the fandom, Jimin did not open the door further. He let that letter be the single window into his family's emotional world, and then quietly closed it again. His younger brother Jihoon has maintained a low public profile. While Jihoon has had some presence on social media at different points, Jimin has never made a show of his relationship on BTS platforms. He does not bring Jihoon into content. He does not tell stories that would make his brother a character in the BTS narrative. He allows Jihoon to be a person first, not a footnote in someone else's fame. What separates Jimin's form of protection from the others on this list is the direction it faces. Most members shielded their families from the outside world, from fans, from media, from scrutiny. Jimin did that too, but he also shielded his family from himself, from his own pain, his own struggles, his own darkest chapters. He decided that his suffering was his to carry, and that the people who raised him did not deserve to share that burden. He danced on stage with a smile that millions adored, and nobody in his family knew what it sometimes took to put that smile on. That kind of protection is not built with money or silence. It is built with love so deep it chooses pain over honesty, because honesty would hurt the people it's trying to save. And if Jimin carrying his family's peace on his own shoulders moved you, the next member's story runs even deeper, rooted in a past that most fans took years to fully understand.
Number 2. V. Kim Tae-hung grew up in Gochang, a quiet rural farming town in South Gyeongsang Province, far from the neon skyline of Seoul and even further from anything resembling the K-pop industry.
His family worked the land. While other future idols were training in dance academies in the capital, young Taehyung was running through fields, living a countryside life shaped by the rhythms of agriculture and the steady presence of his grandparents, who play the central role in raising him. This is not the origin story the industry typically writes for its biggest stars, and for a long time, Taehyung made sure almost nobody knew it. When V first entered the public eye as a member of BTS, his background was wrapped in mystery. He was the member who was hidden during pre-debut promotions, revealed late, an almost secret addition to the lineup. But even after debut, the details of his personal history came out in fragments so small they felt almost accidental. The farming background, the rural childhood, the grandparents, these facts surfaced gradually over years, never through any grand reveal from Taehyung himself. He did not hide his past because he was ashamed. He hid it because he understood what the Korean entertainment industry and the public would do with it. In a culture where image is meticulously constructed and idol backgrounds are often polished into aspirational narratives, coming from a farming family in a small countryside town is not the storyline that gets rewarded. Taehyung protected his family from becoming a punchline, a curiosity, or worse, a target for the kind of classist scrutiny that South Korean celebrity culture can deliver without mercy. What makes Taehyung's story even more remarkable is how he entered this world in the first place. He did not originally plan to audition for big hit entertainment. He accompanied a friend to the audition as moral support. A staff member saw him waiting outside, recognized something in his face, and encouraged him to try out. He did. He passed. His friend did not. That moment of pure chance set his entire life on a different course, and reportedly, Taehyung did not immediately tell his parents what had happened. Accounts from early interviews and BTS lore suggest that Taehyung kept his trainee status hidden from his family for a period, carrying the weight of that secret alone as a teenager navigating a world he had never been prepared for. He shielded his parents from the uncertainty, from the reality that their son had entered an industry where the vast majority of trainees never debut, where years of work can lead to nothing, where the financial and emotional toll on families can be devastating. He chose to protect them from hope that might not pay off. When BTS rose to global fame and Taehyung's family background eventually became more widely known, ARMY did not treat it as gossip. They treated it with the respect Taehyung had been silently asking for all along. His younger brother and sister have remained largely outside the spotlight. His grandparents, the people who helped shape him during those formative years in Gochang, stayed in their world, untouched by the chaos of his. Taehyung built an invisible fence around the life he came from and never let the cameras climb over it. He performed on stages in front of hundreds of thousands. He walked red carpets. He became one of the most recognized faces on the planet. And the fields of Gochang, the farmhouse, the grandparents who raised him, all of it stayed exactly where he left it, safe and undisturbed, because he decided that his fame would never become their burden. And if Taehyung protecting his roots hits deep, the final member on this list carries a story so heavy and so real that when ARMY finally understood the full picture, the only possible response was silence and the deepest respect.
Number 1. Suga.
Min Yoongi grew up poor in Daegu. Not the kind of humble backstory that gets romanticized in celebrity interviews. The real kind. The kind where the family struggles to make ends meet and a teenage son watches it happen knowing there is nothing he can do yet. Yoongi fell in love with music early, started writing and producing as a teenager, working at a local recording studio before he ever set foot in an entertainment company. When he told his parents he wanted to pursue rap and music production as a career, they did not support it. In a household already under financial pressure, their son choosing one of the most unstable career paths imaginable was not a dream, it was a risk they could not afford. Yoongi left for Seoul anyway, becoming a trainee at Big Hit Entertainment, a company that at the time was small, unproven, and very far from the powerhouse it would later become. And this is where the protection began, not the kind built with money or fame, but the kind built with pain, absorbed in total silence. During his trainee years, Yoongi worked part-time jobs to survive. He could not ask his parents for financial support. They had barely enough for themselves, and they had not endorsed this path in the first place. So he delivered food. He worked long hours on top of grueling training schedules, riding through the streets of Seoul to earn enough to eat and pay for the bare minimum a trainee needs to keep going. Then one night he was hit by a car while making a delivery. The accident injured his shoulder severely. For a performer and producer who needed his body to function, this was potentially career-ending. But Yoongi did not tell Big Hit about the full extent of the injury immediately. He was terrified that the company would drop him from the trainee roster, that everything he had sacrificed, everything his family had endured, would collapse because of one accident on a delivery run he was only doing because he had no money. He carried that injury in silence. He did not tell his parents what had happened. He did not burden his family with the knowledge that their son was getting hit by cars in a city far from home, chasing a dream they never believed in, working dangerous jobs just to stay alive long enough to maybe debut someday. He protected them from the worst of it, not because they couldn't handle it, but because he loved them too much to let them carry it. Years later, when BTS became the biggest act in the world, Yoongi poured every drop of that suffering into his music. His solo mixtapes under the name August D are among the most brutally honest pieces of work in modern Korean music. He rapped about the poverty. He rapped about the depression. He rapped about the small room he lived in during those years, the address practically carved into the lyrics like a scar. But even in those songs, he never exposed his family. He told his story, not theirs. He turned his own pain into art while leaving their dignity completely intact. And then he did the one thing that closed the circle. He made sure his family would never worry about money again. Yoongi purchased property for his parents, a fact reported through public records, not through any announcement he ever made. He took a family that once could not afford to support a son's dream and gave them the kind of security that erases the fear of tomorrow. His father, who once opposed everything Yoongi stood for, eventually came to understand. The reconciliation between them was not performed for cameras. It happened privately, the way Yoongi always intended, between a father and a son, with no audience, no content, no narrative. Just two people finding their way back to each other after years of distance created by a bet that the whole world now knows paid off. Min Yoongi did not just protect his family from fame, he protected them from his own suffering, carried their doubt without resentment, and repaid their uncertainty with a life they never have to worry about again. That is why number one makes ARMY respect them even more. Because protection is not always a wall. Sometimes it's a son deciding that his family will never know how much it cost him to make sure they were okay.
7 men, 7 different methods, 1 identical instinct. Protect the people who loved them before the world even knew their names. Jungkook chose silence. J-Hope built financial walls. Jin hid behind laughter. RM controlled every word. Jimin carried his pain alone. Taehyung erased his own history. And Yoongi absorbed suffering so quietly that his family never felt the weight of what it took to save them. Most people see BTS on stage and think the sacrifice was the choreography, the schedule, the years of training. But the real sacrifice happened where no camera was rolling, in the phone calls where they pretended everything was fine, in the family details they refused to share, in the money they sent without announcement, and in the wounds they never showed the people who would have hurt most seeing them. This is not celebrity privacy management. This is love expressed through discipline, silence, and choices that will never make headlines, because that is exactly the point. If this video changed the way you see BTS, drop a like and tell us in the comments. Which member's story hit you the hardest? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Because the stories worth telling are the ones that happen when nobody is watching.